You'll never understand technology, Samantha. My brother Eric's voice dripped with condescension as he lounged in our father's executive chair at Sullivan Tech. Making pretty websites for your college friends doesn't make you a real developer. I stood in front of the massive mahogany desk, my MIT acceptance letter clutched in my hand. I had come straight here after receiving it, excited to share the news with my family. Instead, I got another dose of their perpetual dismissal. I got into the computer science program, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. On a full scholarship. MIT. My father looked up from his phone, frowning. What happened to Stanford Business School? We've already made arrangements. I don't want to do business administration, I cut in. I want to build software. Real software, not just the pretty websites Eric talks about. Eric snorted. Dad, she doesn't understand. Sullivan Tech needs business leaders, not coders. We can hire programmers from India for that. The casual racism made me wince, but it was typical of how my brother viewed technology. To him, coding was beneath the Sullivan family. We were supposed to be executives making deals and playing golf while lesser people did the actual work. Samantha, my father said, using his patient but disappointed tone, your brother is right. You're a Sullivan. We don't write code. We run companies. End of discussion. I looked between them, my father, CEO of Sullivan Tech, and Eric, the golden boy heir apparent. Neither of them could write a line of code to save their lives. They ran a technology company built entirely on acquisitions and outsourcing, proudly ignorant of how their own products actually worked. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go to Stanford Business School. Like you want. They both smiled, satisfied at having won. Neither noticed my crossed fingers behind my back, or the determination in my eyes. 2 months later, I was setting up my dorm room at MIT. I had turned down Stanford and the trust fund that came with it, choosing instead to pursue my passion. My mother had cried, my father had raged, and Eric had laughed, certain I would fail and come crawling back. You're making a huge mistake, my father had warned. Don't expect any support from us. I didn't. I had my scholarship, a part-time job at a local tech startup, and, most importantly, a plan. That first year at MIT opened my eyes to possibilities my family couldn't imagine. While Sullivan Tech churned out mediocre enterprise software cobbled together from overseas contractors, I was learning about artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the future of cloud computing. My roommate, Lei Chen, became my best friend and eventual business partner. She was brilliant at systems architecture while I excelled at AI algorithms. Together, we started working on something revolutionary during our spare time. What if we could create an operating system that learns? I proposed one night, surrounded by empty coffee cups and whiteboards filled with code. Not just basic machine learning, but true adaptive intelligence that optimizes itself in real time. Lei's eyes lit up. An OS that evolves with each user, understanding their needs before they do. We called it Neuralis. Every free moment went into development. We lived on ramen noodles and caffeine, coding until dawn and dragging ourselves to class exhausted. But it was working. Our prototype could analyze usage patterns and adapt its entire architecture to optimize performance. Meanwhile, Sullivan Tech was struggling. Their outdated enterprise software was losing market share to more innovative competitors. Eric, now COO, gave interviews about revolutionary updates that were really just surface-level changes to decade-old code. During my junior year, Lei and I entered a major tech competition with an early version of Neuralis. We won first place, catching the attention of several venture capital firms. The prize money meant we could finally incorporate our company, Nexus Computing. That's when my family finally noticed. A startup. Eric's voice was incredulous over the phone. Have you lost your mind? Come back to Sullivan Tech. We'll give you a nice executive position. Maybe head of innovation or something. Head of innovation. I laughed. You don't even know what I've built. Some kind of operating system, right? Dad says it's probably just a Linux fork with a fancy interface. Stop playing around and come work for a real company. I hung up on him. By graduation, Nexus Computing had secured $10 million in seed funding. Lei and I hired a small team of brilliant developers, all focused on perfecting Neuralis. We worked in secret, protected by military-grade NDAs. One day, browsing Sullivan Tech's public GitHub repositories, I discovered something alarming. Their core enterprise software was so badly architected that it was vulnerable to complete system failure. One bug could bring down their entire client network. I reported the vulnerability anonymously through proper channels. They ignored it. Should we tell them directly? Lei asked when I showed her the code. I shook my head. They wouldn't listen. But we can do something better. Neuralis was nearly ready for launch. Its adaptive architecture could run any existing software while continuously optimizing and securing it, including, theoretically, Sullivan Tech's vulnerable systems. We approached their clients first, the actual IT department struggling with Sullivan Tech's buggy software. We offered them Neuralis as a solution, an OS that could run their existing applications while making them faster, more secure, and self-optimizing. The response was overwhelming. Company after company signed up for our beta program. None of them told Sullivan Tech they were running their software on Neuralis. Why would they? It just worked better. Then came the day I had been waiting for. Sullivan Tech announced a major system upgrade for their enterprise clients. The update contained changes that should have broken compatibility with any standard operating system. But nothing broke. Their software kept running, smoothly, on Neuralis, which adapted automatically to the changes. Their clients didn't even notice the update. How is this possible? Eric demanded in an emergency board meeting, which I watched via a leaked video stream. Our monitoring shows all systems running normally. But these specs don't make sense. The performance metrics are impossible. My father, now executive chairman, looked equally baffled. Get our development team to figure it out. Sir, the lead architect spoke up nervously. We've tried. Whatever is happening is beyond our understanding. It's like the software is evolving on its own. I smiled, watching their confusion. Sullivan Tech's entire business now ran on my technology, and they didn't even know it. That evening, I received an email from my father's executive assistant. Subject: Emergency meeting requested with Sullivan Tech board. Reason: unknown technology integration. Your presence is required. I showed it to Lei, who grinned. Ready to show your family what real technology looks like. I thought about all the times they dismissed me, underestimated me, told me I'd never understand technology. Not yet, I replied. First, let's make them admit they're the ones who don't understand. I typed a response. Ms. Chen, CEO of Nexus Computing, will attend via video conference. They still didn't know that Ms. Chen was me. But they were about to learn just how much their former business princess understood about technology. The meeting was scheduled for tomorrow morning. I spent the night reviewing Neuralis performance data across Sullivan Tech's network. The numbers were staggering: 300% efficiency improvement, 0 security breaches, and adaptation patterns that exceeded our most optimistic projections. My family had never believed I could create something meaningful. Tomorrow, they would discover that their entire business now depended on my innovation. And I was just getting started. The Sullivan Tech boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it through my video feed. Pretentious oil paintings, leather chairs, and men in expensive suits pretending to understand technology. Only now, I wasn't the dismissed daughter standing before them. I was the CEO they desperately needed to meet. My father sat at the head of the table, looking older than I remembered. Eric paced nervously behind him. Their entire development team huddled at the far end, laptops open, frantically trying to understand how their software was running better than they designed it. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Chen. My father began formally, unaware he was addressing his daughter. We've asked you here because our monitoring systems show that most of our enterprise clients are running our software on your Neuralis platform. All of your clients, actually, I corrected, using a slight accent to mask my voice. Not most. Eric stopped pacing. What? That's impossible. We haven't authorized any OS changes. I allowed myself a small smile, though they couldn't see it through my darkened video feed. Your authorization wasn't required. Your clients made the choice themselves. Neuralis is an open platform. This is corporate espionage, Eric snapped. You've hijacked our software. On the contrary, I replied calmly. We've saved it. Would you like to see the vulnerability reports your team ignored? The ones showing how your entire network could be compromised with a single exploit. My father's face darkened. How did you get those internal reports? They weren't internal. They were submitted through proper security channels. You ignored them. I pulled up the documentation on my shared screen. Just like you ignore anything that challenges your assumptions about technology. The lead architect spoke hesitantly. She's right, sir. These vulnerabilities are real. But somehow Neuralis is protecting against them automatically. It's like nothing I've ever seen. I began sharing my screen, showing them Neuralis in action, the adaptive algorithms, the self-healing architecture, the evolutionary patterns that made their software run better than its original design. This is beyond our current development capabilities, the architect admitted. Years beyond. Eric slammed his hand on the table. Then how did this startup figure it out? Who are you really, Miss Chen? Would you believe MIT computer science? I asked mildly. My father stiffened. Something in my voice must have triggered a memory. Our clients are impressed with the performance improvements, I continued. They're asking why Sullivan Tech never developed this technology internally. Why a company that claims to be a tech leader needs a third-party OS to make its software work properly. What do you want? My father asked quietly. Money. A partnership. But first, I want you to admit something. Admit that you don't understand the technology your company is built on. Admit that you've been coasting on acquisitions and outsourcing while real innovation passed you by. The room fell silent. My father's face flushed with anger, but the truth of my words hung heavy in the air. Who are you to demand? Eric started, but I cut him off. I'm someone who actually understands technology. Unlike a certain family that thinks coding is beneath them. My father's eyes widened. The accent had slipped in my anger, revealing my real voice. Samantha. I turned on my video feed, letting them see me clearly. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Hello, Dad. Still think I'll never understand technology? Eric collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. This is a joke. It has to be. Your entire enterprise network running on my operating system? No joke. I smiled. Though I have to admit, watching you try to figure it out has been entertaining. Why? My father asked. Why not just tell us? Would you have listened? You never listened before. Not when I wanted to learn coding. Not when I chose MIT. Not when I warned you about your security flaws. The lead architect was staring at his screen in awe. The adaptation algorithms, they're incredible. Our software is running at efficiency levels we thought were theoretically impossible. That's what happens when you let real developers innovate, I said. Instead of treating them like replaceable resources. My father stood slowly. Name your price. Whatever you want for Neuralis, we'll acquire Nexus Computing and make you CTO. No, I cut him off sharply. I'm not selling, and I'm not coming back to be your token tech expert. Then why reveal yourself now? Eric demanded. Why not stay hidden? Because it's time for real change at Sullivan Tech. I laid out my terms. Sullivan Tech would become a Nexus Computing client, licensing our technology like everyone else. They would restructure their development practices, treating engineers with respect instead of outsourcing everything. And most importantly, they would publicly acknowledge that their improved performance came from Neuralis. This is blackmail, Eric protested. This is business, I corrected. Your entire client base runs on my OS. They love it. If you try to force them off it, they'll leave you instead. My father studied me silently through the video feed. Finally, he nodded. The board will need to approve. The board will approve, I interrupted, because they understand what you don't. Sullivan Tech needs Neuralis more than we need you. Over the next few months, everything changed. Sullivan Tech stock soared after announcing their partnership with Nexus Computing. Their clients, already thrilled with Neuralis, became even more loyal. Their developers, finally given respect and resources, began innovating again. Eric left the company, unable to handle the reality where his little sister was the genius he pretended to be. He started a venture capital firm. I made sure every startup he approached knew his past views on developers. My father stayed on as chairman, but his role became more ceremonial. He stopped pretending to understand technology and focused on what he did best: business relationships. 1 year later, I sat in my office at Nexus Computing, reviewing the latest Neuralis performance metrics. Sullivan Tech software was now just one of hundreds of enterprise systems running on our platform. A message popped up from Lei: "Your father's here." I found him waiting in the lobby, looking uncomfortable among the casual developers and modern decor. "Quite different from Sullivan Tech," he observed as I led him to my office. "That's the point. We build technology here. We don't just talk about it." He nodded, taking in the whiteboards covered in code and the engineers collaborating in open workspaces. "I was wrong," he said finally. "About everything. The way we ran Sullivan Tech. The way we treated developers. The way I treated you." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about the scared but determined girl who had defied her family, worked endless nights, and built what they said she never could. "I don't need your forgiveness," I said softly. "I need you to understand something. Technology isn't just about buying and selling companies. It's about creation, innovation, solving real problems. That's what I tried to tell you all those years ago." He looked at a whiteboard filled with algorithms he couldn't comprehend. "I understand that now. Too late, probably." "It's never too late to learn," I said. "Want to see how Neuralis really works?" His eyes lit up with genuine interest, for the first time I could remember. That evening, at his request, I walked my father through a basic coding tutorial. Later, I found an old photo in my desk, teenage me at my first coding competition, proudly showing off my project while my family stood bored in the background. I sent the photo to Eric with a short message: "Still think pretty websites are beneath us?" He didn't respond, but his venture capital firm quietly began focusing on female-founded tech startups. Lei appeared in my doorway with champagne. "Celebrating something?" she asked. "The future," I said, looking out at our growing team, and at everyone who once said we'd never understand it. Neuralis continued to evolve, becoming the standard for enterprise computing. Sullivan Tech, under new technical leadership, became one of our strongest partners. And my father, to everyone's surprise, started taking programming classes. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's building something so revolutionary they have no choice but to admit they were wrong all along. And as I watched Neuralis adapt and grow, protecting and optimizing the digital world in ways my family had once dismissed as impossible, I knew we'd done exactly that.